Attention all subjects. This is your regular automated voice of authoritarianism telling you what mostly you can't do during this time of not so settled black plague and social angst and gang warfare. EA Big Brother. So, no meetings, no heating, no cars, no bother. Report them sicky boo-boos, and for the love of all the gods and their departments, don't feed the rats. Seriously, stop it. I reminded you mofos in yesterday's announcement. In this time of uncertainty, the Warlord in his wisdom has provided a new broadcast for all you non-sick lot to watch. So, shut the fuck up and listen to what the Warlord has to say of his latest conquest. And have a nice day. Oh, P.S. Keep an eye out for a masked knife who is also known to use magic to kill his... Wait, what is that sound? Oh fuck, shit is here.
Assassins are cool, yet a very underhanded bunch, aren't they? Sneaking in the shadows, stabbing you in the back without the honour of a straightforward fight, or putting God's knows what into your food and drink, and then you choke to death on your own vomit whilst possibly shitting and pissing yourself. But no doubt, if used effectively, fear spreads and surprise giving you a fighting chance and be gone before you get too much attention. But, if things do go wrong, you just look like a tit. But hey, if the blade and poison don't work, might as well use those dark arts you practiced on your off time when your parents weren't looking. So as you could probably tell, the Warlord, you know, me, is broadcasting to you the latest conquest to my loyal subjects and the great convulsing masses begging for more. Dishonored, a 2012 stealth action adventure and occult worship game produced by French producers Arkane Studios and published by a studio I can't stand and Fallout defiler. Dishonored is a game that is adored by many. I mean, all you must do is look at the ratings on Steam and GOG, with an overwhelmingly positive and 4.6 out of 5 ratings respectively. And having completed the game fully, yeah, this is a beautifully crafted game, and one made with immense love and passion behind it. From its art design mixed with inspirations of Victorian London and Lovecraftian mythos, its eerie music that suffocates one with a sense of dread and foreboding, its slick gameplay controls and gameplay philosophy of player freedom inspired by games like Thief and Deus Ex, Harvey Smith was involved in this by the way, in which I did hint at very vaguely last broadcast and was called out on, and many other nuances I will discuss later into this broadcast. Yeah, there is plenty good to say about a game in which you can slaughter your way through everything, or not at all. But where can one get this game? Originally released for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 and Windows PCs on October 9, 2012, this game would be later released for the Xbox One and PS4, as well as be available on Steam and GOG respectively. So you have plenty of choice on what system you can play this game on, preferably on PC for the better visuals and better choice of controls. Now, let's set forth and delve into the world of Dishonored. So, when one boots up Dishonored for the first time, psst, by the way, I'm playing the PC version from GOG by the way, you'll see the very striking art design of the game. The landscape, yes, looks amazing yet strangely surreal. The humans you'll see, however, look odd. More on that soon. The city of Dunwall is a city of contrasts, like anything you probably have read or seen during the Victorian Age. Heavily inspired by the cities of London and Edinburgh during the Victorian and Edwardian Age, and the artwork of John Atkinson Grimshaw, it is a treat for the eyes for the player. Yet it is also an intriguing playground of cloak, dagger and cult that is rarely seen outside many other action-adventure games like Thief, Red Dead Redemption 2, or something like... Fable 3. As stated before, Dunwall is a city of parallels. As you traverse the landscape and exact your revenge, you will bloody the ground in a variety of locations. From the upper-class abodes of the royal family in Cauldron Tower, aristocratic manors and apartments. These are clean, glamorous, full of the finest furniture, latest art and knickknacks worth borrowing. These places just reek of arrogance and obnoxiousness to the dirty commoners and anything outside of the aristocrats' little la-la land of their material world. Just climb out of the window and the glamour ends with a vast landscape of slums and crowded apartments where several generations of relatives probably share the same piss pot and singular room. And the industrial areas aren't any better, with little regards to workspace safety or health, as well as little regards to the environment. And whilst the aristocratic abodes are colourful, the slums are gloomy, grimy, and if there are any colours, they are just washed out or covered in product posters. But then you'll notice more otherworldly apparatus appear here and there within the Victorian-esque landscape, with the Lord Regents deploying walls of light, tallboy walkers and automated watchtowers to keep the lore into place. It not only adds a steampunk aesthetic to the landscape, but it looks like something from City 17, looking more invasive and out of sync with the surrounding landscape. Almost like a criticism of the police state with what I said earlier, invasive and almost parasitic. But then, as you explore a desolate building, an abandoned sewer, or the darkest corner of the level, you may encounter an outsider shrine welcoming you into its embrace. Its purple ribbons crisscrossing near the altar and blue lights catching your eyes, as well as the prize of bone runes being offered to you. It's welcoming, breaking the drab colours of the ruins, yet unnerving, for the dark arts is present here and is surrounded either by insanity, death, or both. Yet this game is bleak. Look anywhere and sad stories will be seen. Survivors in their final moments, events better said in word than action, and humanity being reduced to a base and animalistic and tribal mindset of might makes right. And the city is on the brink of collapse thanks to the rat plague. Many buildings are desolate or barely standing, but the societal rot is more than obvious to show how screwed everything is. Graffiti highlighting the dire situation on the ground and saying how much they love the Lord Regent's work in maintaining order. The constant presence of martial law, guardsmen abusing their power, survivors scavenging whatever they can find, and gangs fighting over what remains of a dying city. Items once treasured now being used as loot to just survive another day, and the ever-present mess of mass graves. Good gods, the mass grave. While this city is fun to traverse, every level the player will traverse and soak the ground crimson is created to allow a multitude of ways to egress towards your target, to get the fuck out of there when the deed is done, or to simply get somewhere faster. Look around and you will find several alternative paths to utilise to your advantage, with some pathways clearly coloured a dark grey that sticks out of the environment. You can walk down the main street, jump down a level and gingerly waltz through the sewers, take a ride on a carriage up top, climb the rooftops, or possess a rat, a fish, or your fellow human beings and sneak through the pipes or bypass checkpoints. With the many ways of traversing the landscape, this game encourages exploration as not only a way to find quicker alternative paths, but also to find more clues, treasures, possible upgrades, and some people that may need saving, or some environmental storytelling. Although, there is only so much of the scenery you can climb, so there will come times where you just look like a tit, jumping like a loon, trying to gain leverage on terrain you can't use, and die trying or breaking a few bones. Magical abilities being used or not. And finally, to gush more about the amazing level design some more, as you progress further into the game, and depending on how you do certain predetermined actions and how murderous or not you are, the levels will change around you in a variety of ways. You may, or may not, see more rats, weepers, different posters, more or less NPCs wandering around, a more or less foreboding atmosphere, or more or less guards wandering around. Again, it is a very subtle, yet a very intriguing and clever way of telling how the player's actions affect the overall story and state of Donald. But it is not a fully organic experience. Rather, you must do a few prerequisite actions that can increase or decrease the chaos in the city. And chaos is quite a fickle thing in this game. I'll discuss that later. So, the level environment design is extraordinarily brilliant with plenty of ways to egress, storytelling and gameplay advantages. So, what about the characters? They look, interesting. Not as amazing looking as the levels, but their artwork is something else. Created by Sebastian Mitten, his character creations were inspired from artists within the Victorian period, keeping with the setting and theme from the works of Charles Dana Gibson, illustrations from books like Captain Blood, and old mugshots from Edwardian London and Australia. They do look a bit uncanny with their weird body proportions and a weird shading to them that makes them look like a 3D sketching animated to life. Yet the odd body shapes of the NPCs also help the players identify who they are up against. The nobles wearing their fine clothes adorned with jewellery, standing upright and walk around with a sense of smugness. The guardsmen will have small heads and large hands, scars or burn marks, or they are very lanky and move in a more animalistic fashion. Whilst the officers act almost like the nobles, smart, prim, equally smug, are not noticeably more nimble in battle. Civilians look dirty, frail, and easily frightened, whereas the overseers are equally regal and Spartan with their clashing colours of gold and dark colours of reds, greys, and blacks. They too walk around with a sense of self-superiority. Yeah, detail is the name of the game for the visuals of Dishonored, and it plays it so fucking well. Everything about the levels and the characters is exquisitely crafted with great care and intrigue for the player that gives each level a sense of grandeur, freedom of movement, and tragic stories that fills each level and character with a sense of place and mystique, despite its dilapidation. And the glitches. Some glitches are hilarious and inadvertently adds comedy to the dark arts of assassination. You'll see NPCs just freeze and stare off into space and barely move, making it easy for you to sneak up to them or stab them. The outsider may leave his eyes and teeth in the mortal realm as he returns to the void, and some surfaces just don't tolerate the presence of unconscious NPCs on the floor. So you see them either clip through the scenery, or they just get launched a little ways, or off a sheer drop, or into the sea, inadvertently killing someone in your non-lethal run. Yeah, be careful. But overall, despite a few mishaps, the visuals are stellar and have barely any glitches. Now I have drawled on long enough about the visuals, let's move to sound. I like the sounds of that. Speaking of sound, yeah, this won't take too long today. Like the visuals, the soundscape of the game is of a very high quality, either that is the sound effects as you fight, cast spells, or explore the ruined city of Dunwall, the music that suffocates you with a sense of dread, paranormal suspense, and the threat of combat, and finally, the quality voice acting from many recognisable actors that give a sense of humanity into the dark scenario of a virulent plague, and give a reasonable voice to many of the characters you will see, albeit dreary ones. The sound effects you'll hear adds a greater amount of visceral impact to the combat and assassinations I have no doubt many here would probably do if they ever tried this game. The clashing of swords, the cacophony of flintlock pistols igniting and discharging, explosions from whale oil barrels and bombs spreading shrapnel and resultant fireballs all over a small area. The twisting and snapping of the environment, damage from battle, plus the squelching of pierced flesh, blood squirting from wounds, and the screaming of bystanders and casualties gives the ambience of combat a clear sense of being utterly visceral and horrific, yet morbidly satisfying to hear. And as with the physical violence of blade and shot resonating across the audioscape as you partake in the dance of death, the audio landscape of magic and the more occultic side of things sounds more otherworldly, alien, and a sense of dread persists with everything involving the void. Even when you're buying items for the next mission or on the pause menu. It sounds as if you are suspended in the middle of nowhere, frozen in place, like you are in a void. Ha! Plus when you enter the void the various times in game, the alien, surreal and inhuman vibe is added further when you see what is around. It's literally Limbo from Dungeons & Dragons. Hovering whales, islets of stability in the void of anomalies, gravitational oddities, and the seemingly fragments of memories of Corvo and Dowd respectively. And to add to the occultist vibe, and almost sounding like you're saying names of Lovecraftian deities, each ability has its own soundbite as you cast, with each incantation a jumble assortment of words influenced from English, French, Chinese, Arabic, and Portuguese. The music and ambience of this game also has an air of dread to it, adding to an already grim vibe that resonates with the game and the overuse of stabbing. Composed by the late Daniel Litch, the soundtrack consists of the use of musical instruments resonating from the 19th century, like pianos, violins and cellos, mixed with musical techniques from the 20th century. It creates an ambience in which Litch describes as an evil fog. The music is not comforting, and more truthfully, it's not music per se, but more so ambience. It's everywhere like the smog in London streets. It seeps deep into the skin, makes you feel a bit uncomfortable, and might have given you a bit of mercury poisoning as well. It fits perfectly for the dark fantasy setting. In moments of relative calm, it's subtle and barely noticeable, as you either explore the collapsed city Enjoying a high society party?
I'm sure in a few drinks I'll find that mask funny.
That's quite a mask. Are you on the guest list? I need that prize. If I could get upstairs, one of them must have left traces.
Good tobacco is getting more expensive by the day.
Indeed.
Beat it! You shouldn't be here.
Or taking refuge in your hideout away from prying eyes at the fascists? But then, once the action starts, the ambience changes. The music becomes more frantic and higher tempo. It's not fighting music, more frantic music, empowering the player with a fight or flight mentality. The music is catchy and good, even the bad guys agree and dance to it. Same with the sound cues you will hear from time to time, indicating it is introducing a new enemy, an on-screen sequence of intrigue, and probably one of the most memorable, being spotted. You'll be minding your own business, scouting around, gaining extra information and loot, and get into a good position to execute your attack. Then you hear it.
Installed at last with no smoke.
Dude, there is no sound in this game that produces a cold sweat quicker, nor makes your ass clench quicker than the audio sting of someone seeing you. Even worse is when you thought the coast is clear, or someone is right next to you. And finally, voice acting. And like everything else with the sound, it is also excellently done, a high quality finish. You may recognise some of the voice actors that play many of the characters in the game, and as it is their job, they do a fantastic job of portraying their characters, from the brave...
He's been poisoned. There was a younger of your order in here before. An initiate, perhaps. Detain him.
You don't give orders here.
Don't be a fool. He must be running already. Get after him! I'll be filing a full report.
Stuff your report, Colonel, and I'll have your weapons at once.
Idiot! One step closer and I'll gut you.
Sinister,
I am not alive, nor have I received the gift of death.
the deranged,
Is that you, my dear husband? My eyes aren't what they used to be. Have you seen my little birdies? The dear things must be starving without their granny. Here, birdies.
and the morbid.
I can see all her tomorrows, and I know that either she dies tonight at your hand, or she'll live out her days, month after month, year after year, far away, even as her fine clothes wear into tatters and her silken hair gets dull and gray. Half the city can see the lights from the party, and they dream of the delights inside. Will you tear it all to pieces? Either way, it's Lady Boyle's last party.
Yet, they can come off as somewhat dreary. You know, considering the circumstances. And over the course of your adventures, you'll hear the NPCs have conversations between each other. Added a bit of personality to what other games would make as soulless shells only worth stabbing.
These are pigs. Pigs for Sokolov's experiments. And pigs mean nothing to me. Understand?
Right. I mean, why worry about a couple of disgusting smelly pigs, you know? All pigs get slaughtered sooner or later. Better if I wonder about those sounds we heard from the warehouse, right? I mean, what was that all about?
That's better. You'll go far, Grayson.
Albeit the personalities are either dark comedic pragmatism,
Hey!
What is it?
I think that last one was moving.
What?
Yeah, the little one.
Not possible. I inspected them myself. Keep working.
Well, he ain't moving no more.
or self-defeated nihilism.
Half the city's dead. We won't make it 3 more months.
And most people don't seem to get on with one another in Dunwall. Miserable fucks.
You know, Guardsman, I don't care for you very much. Fuck him!
Royal physician or not, I hear Telly's a beast. A superstitious philanderer who spends more time with prostitutes than he does in the laboratory.
Is this what it's going to be like when we're married? It is, isn't it? Hey, shut up.
Hey, blow off, Chopper.
But overall, the soundscape of this game is near enough equal to the visuals. Yeah, extremely good. And as a quick note, the game's performance is brilliant with only a few reported glitches here and there, but no hard crashes during my time playing this game. Although with the audio there is one glitch where a sound is halted briefly only for it to resume randomly, mostly during combat. So yeah, it is great. Now that is out of the way, let's discuss gameplay of this game. So, when it comes to the gameplay aspect of this game, well, you play as an assassin and eliminate your designated targets. And the word eliminated is emphasised with broad ways to getting rid of your target and its many followers and protectors. Lethal, non-lethal, using your forged weapons, dark magic, or using the environment around you, or a bit of everything else. It's all up to you. But alongside the murdering, there is plenty of exploration to be done in the deceptively designed linear levels, with many prizes to find and peoples to see if one does so. So there is plenty to discuss when it comes to gameplay. For a supposed killer for hire, you will need a good number of weapons to dispatch your targets. From guardsmen making their patrols and enforcing the law, overseers and those fucking music boxes ruining everyone else's fun. Assassins of Dowd using the arts of assassination and hit and run. River crusts. Fuck them. Gangsters just being a bunch of cunts to everyone around them and acting oh so tough. And the occasional hounds and rats. These are the many hostiles you'll face from time to time, each with their own strengths to watch out for and weaknesses to exploit. Luckily, this game provides many lethal weapons to use. Your primary weapon stashed on your right hand is your utilitarian sword, your main tool in the dirty business of slashing, stabbing, decapitating and lobotomizing your foes, or hitting a nearby wall to attract would-be targets. This leaves your left hand free to utilise a good variety of gadgets and sidearms to tip the scales of the hunt in your favour, either lethally or non-lethally. The pistol and hand crossbow are your two main secondary weapons. Whilst the pistol is a simple lethal response to danger, if used properly and aimed at the head, the crossbow is more adaptive with more ammo types useful to any given situation. Alongside the normal crossbow bolts, you'll also get to use explosive bolts, fire bolts and sleeping darts for the more pacifistic assassins out there. And with upgrades to both weapons that increases ammo capacity, reload speed and accuracy, the weapon's appearance will change accordingly, with the pistol looking more like a revolver prototype, and the hand crossbow having a sweet reload animation when changing ammo type, which I spent way too long being enthralled with, rather than killing my next target. Oh yeah, gadgets. You'll get to use a variety that can either throw opponents off for a few moments or tenderize them into minced meat. You have blade-filled ripper mines, 18th century styled hand grenades, choke dust, a flashbang sort, arc mines that render the enemy unconscious, and of course, the environment, and there are plenty of ways. See those gates of light, that alien looking watchtower and those barrels of blue glowy things? Yeah, you can sabotage the first two with a rewiring tool. Watch the tools of tyranny be used against their own masters. And those barrels of blue glowy stuff, yeah, whale oil. Not only can they be used to power certain devices and open new ways forward and stop other apparatus from harming or blocking your way, but throwing or shooting them can make the barrels an effective explosive device. Just being sure not to drop it. Oh fuck! And many of those are just the lethal options. There are several non-lethal ways to overcome your enemies. I did mention sleeping darts. That can also be upgraded into combat sleeping darts, which equals a quicker knockout, but you can also chokehold people into unconsciousness. Or if you are a super shinobi, use simple stealth and distractions, as the level designs include many height advantages, crevices and alternate paths that can make a ghost run on Dishonored possible, as well as a bloodless run, if your patience is good enough and your psychopathy is kept in check. And you don't fuck up. Ow! But if you are deemed worthy of the outsider's attention, he will grant you his mark, and let you be an edgy Harry Potter for as long as you are interesting enough, and gain magical abilities, and the friendly companionship at the heart that makes happy and colourful conversations.
Someday this place will devour all the lights in the sky. The doom of Pandysia has come to the sea. I am not alive, nor have I received the gift of death.
Death and despair! Death and despair! Death and despair!
Each of the supernatural abilities, and again sticking to its edgy tone, it's not known as magic, can be utilised in several ways to overcome any challenge that confronts the player. In the main game you'll have access to 7 abilities. 5 are the spells that you can totally abuse and doom Dunwall into a biohazardous oblivion, whilst 2 are stat buffs that increase your damage resistance and damage output. The 2 spells you'll overuse, trust me, I did, is Blink and Dark Sight. Blink is a fast travelling teleportation ability that can take you to far off areas, within range of course, including ledges, roofs, some lampposts, billboards and anywhere where the handy aiming icon is. Look out for the arrow within that can allow you to climb up. And Dark Sight. Despite its sinister name implying you're seeing hidden horrors beyond our mortal realm, no, it reveals the movements of potential enemies and their lines of sight, as well as the position of loot, hostiles, machinery and their power source via colour coding. And like your weapons, every one of your abilities can be upgraded 2 times, increasing its effectiveness, range, damage and reduced mana cost. Alongside those overused spells you have a few others. You have agility that can give you a double jump, as well as jumping, moving and swimming faster. With Bloodthirsty, each kill fills up your adrenaline bar, which once full you can unleash a brutal kill. That, or you successfully block an enemy attack leaving him open to a brutal kill, which isn't hard since it's so easily telegraphed. Vitality increases your hit points. That's it. Bend Time, very assertive sounding, does what it says really. Slows down time but allows you to maneuver yourself out of harm's way or deploy a few traps and fire a few shots before time reverts to normal speed. Possession allows you to possess rats, fish, after another upgrade, other humans, opening alternate pathways through pipes to overcome adversaries, arc gates and traps. But be careful if you're in the open.
It looked like he just disappeared.
She's a bitch!
Wind Blast unleashes a typhoon that can throw opponents all over the place along with the clutter within the vicinity, clearing a path for escape, yet can kill once upgraded to its full potential. And finally, the Shadow Kill. If undetected, any kill turns to ash, making hiding the corpse unnecessary, whereas later upon fully upgrading, each kill turns to ash. And with this many gadgets and weapons at your disposal, the player has a myriad of ways of disposing the targets. And on what tools the players want to use, all of them, some of them, none of them, there are even achievements to use no other ability besides Blink. It all comes down to player skill and technique, although it is significantly easier if you make use of the weapons and magic given to you. And if you are cleverer than I, you can come up with several unique and imaginative ways of murdering the opposition. Summon a few rats, add a razor mine on one of them, possess said rat, then charge into a group of enemies. Gut confetti. Jump assassinations? You can do that. Just be sure not to miss. Blink jump assassinations to take people by surprise. There's plenty more to discover and utilise for your own benefit, and this is all due to the philosophy of the way the game is designed. The very way the game is designed, from the levels, the weapons and the supernatural abilities, emphasise player choice. The levels may be linear in appearance, but there are a variety of approaches for those who would rather take the enemy head on or take a stealthier approach. Interactability is also a huge benefit to this game and gives the world more comedy moments that bring some joy to the bleak landscape. With plenty of things to gather from loot, ammunition, schematics, to upgrade certain gear, alongside bone runes and talismans, which are used to buy abilities and give the player extra buffs to certain movements and attacks respectively. There are plenty of books and audio tapes to read and listen to discover more about the world of the Empire, and how morally bankrupt the institutions and society is. Other items of the world can be interacted with. They can be used to distract enemies, sabotage surveillance equipment, and overcome security. Heal yourself by scoffing all the food there is, rotten or not.
My apple!
Or because you can. The bodies of the fallen and unconscious, which you can tell by the fact they are snoring, and a little blurb is there as well, can be picked up and placed anywhere. The smart reverse would hide the bodies in bins, abandoned apartments, or anywhere where line of sight is easily broken to avoid provoking the guard into more of an alerted status. But 95% of players would mess around with this, because it's just so damn funny to do. Maybe leave them in a compromising position and wonder what the conversation must be like between these two when they wake up. Try and get them to sit down properly on the toilet, or that nice recliner, and give them concussion as you leave bloody impact marks on the wall. Play shot put, or place them high up or near a shared drop and contemplate the image of them waking up and then shitting themselves upon discovery. But be careful when you leave them, for they may have an instance of falling "oh no!" and add in an accidental kill you were hoping to avoid. And certain terrains won't accept placements, so they'll just launch off and either end up behind you or launch into the water and drown. 10 out of 10 best game. And finally, before we move on to the story, let's talk controls. Having played this on the Xbox 360 when it first released, I am accustomed to playing this PC port with a controller. But either you play with a keyboard and mouse, or a controller, the controls are silky smooth, responsive and snappy, making gameplay a breeze as you explore, fight, thieve and scout around. You never feel out of control regardless of what you are doing and transitions from. Let's say run into climbing, it's instantaneous and feels natural in speed, thus keeping the gameplay flowing. Running does feel a bit shit though, as it doesn't feel quick enough to be considered sprinting, and it looks on screen like you're walking busting for a piss. Fighting is fine, yet the controls are easy enough to not worry too much, and depending on the difficulty you play on, the combat feels dangerous and equally brutal to both sides. It literally results in waiting for the enemy to strike, block, then using your, when it is telegraphed, they are stunned briefly or run away. Even weapon selection from the inventory is quick and snappy, never delaying the game long enough to slow the pacing of the game. But not everything of the controls is great. Some actions like choking out someone can only happen when an icon shows up. If you try to do so without the icon appearing, you'll just be blocking off someone's fast particles. And some areas you cannot climb up, so you look like a tit jumping constantly trying to gain leverage on a thing you can never climb on. But overall, the gameplay is fantastic, clearly catered to ensure it's equally challenging yet easy to understand for the player. And this game is fun. Despite its dark and dreary atmosphere and story, the flow of the game, regardless of how one plays, is silky smooth and impressively easy for anyone to play. And despite the game making it clear there are plenty of ways to kill, the non-lethal approach is, in the Warlord's humble opinion, far more satisfying, albeit a slower way to overcome your rivals. Almost like it's subverting expectations of being a ruthless killer to most people. And I'm just a crap assassin's enemy, so let's just be nice, eh? You know, within context of Dishonored, of course. Anyway, that's the gameplay over and done with. Let's move on to the story. Story time now, my fellow subjects. We all love stories, don't we? Especially grim and dark stories full of child kidnapping and killings, Victorian societal rot and decadence, and dalliances with eldritch gods of the void and crazy people. As always, from this point onward in the broadcast, there will be spoilers. So, for those who do not wish to be spoiled by what's coming up, go here. Done with what you had to do? For everyone else sticking around for story time, let's go stab some peeps. Or not. Having played both high and low chaos runs of Dishonored, it took about 28 hours to finish both runs. Not only in fulfilling objectives, but also with good amounts of exploration of levels for loot and treasure, and the constant failures and goof-ups.
Oh, shit! Damn it!
But regardless of whatever chaotic route you take, the main story remains pretty much the same, but ends in a lighter or darker way. The story of Dishonored takes place within the Empire of the Isles and within the capital city of Dunwall, on the Isle of Gristle.
And it's the best one too.
Clearly inspired by Victorian Britain, it is an empire of contrasts. An imperial realm of technological progress and a steampunk civilization, glamorous art of the nobility that influence fashion trends and architecture, and the Academy of Natural Sciences leading the ways of thought and making the impossible possible. Yet within the shadows and places one should never hope to tread, the Empire is a place of religious dogma and superstition with dark cults to the outsider, and inquisitive overseers who are gung-ho in eradicating all heresy. A Darwinist mentality that clashes with the progressive advancement of civilization as might makes right with many industries and social interactions. And the glimmer and pomp of empire of the Isles pales and erodes away, leaving corruption to fester and social angst to spread as gangs become more prevalent in the back streets.
You look like a clown.
Now add all this with a strange virulent plague of rats that can shred corpses in a few seconds, leaving weepers with bleeding eyes in their wake, and a clear presence of the void corrupting and menacing people within the material realm, and you have something close to an apocalypse. And you get to see all of it, and the following story, through the eyes of everyone's favourite assassin and royal spy master, Corvo Attano. After being sent across the Isles looking for any help in curing the plague, a very unusual move within the court,
Sending the Empress's bodyguard away for a couple of months. That's unusual.
Corvo is reunited with his daughter and future Empress Emily, and seeing High Overseer Campbell having a portrait done by Sokolov, and possibly sabotaging it, he gives the news to Empress Jessamine Coldwind, which isn't good.
I hoped that one of the other cities had dealt with this before, knew of some cure. This news is very bad. We're at the breaking point. Cowards. They're going to blockade us.
They'll wait to see if the plague turns the city into a graveyard.
Suddenly, mysterious assassins launch an attack, but since these are tutorial enemies, they are dealt with swiftly, and when everything seems to have calmed down for that unusual attack, more assassins show, competent ones this time. Using strange magic, Corvo is held in place as Emily is kidnapped, and the Empress is killed by an unmarked assassin, leaving Corvo before his murdered lover and ruler. And, as the scapegoat, as Hiram Burroughs and Campbell convince the guard he killed her, albeit poorly.
Oh, look at what he's done. Yes, he's killed the Empress. What did you do with young Lady Emily, traitor?
Her own bodyguard. Ironic.
Given a disciplinary tap on the face, Corvo is sent to his room, in Coldridge Prison for 6 months, but for Thaddeus Campbell and Hiram Burroughs, this was perfectly timed for their coup d'etat attempt, for they had grown frustrated over the Empress's handling of the ongoing pandemic. Now having taken charge, they have established a brutal police state to tackle the plague, but as time goes on, uses it to cling to power and do the biddings of their allies. And with Corvo captured, he will be executed in accordance to their plans.
You were in the wrong place at the right time, and someone has to take the fall. Goodbye, Corvo.
But it is at this moment that the rebels against the Lord Regent's rule begin their plan to release Corvo and restore the true leader to the throne. After being given a meal from a friend, and 2 gifts of a key and a sword, Corvo begins his adventure to regain his honour, save Emily, and get revenge. And from this level onwards, the actions you take either through bloodshed or stealth will affect the outcome of your game. But over the course of the game, there are micro objectives that can also alter your chaos level. But chaos is a fickle thing. You basically need to eliminate a certain percentage of hostiles in each area, over 50%, to achieve the bloodier ending. But there is also ways to lower the chaos threshold too. Anyway, story. After leaving his cell, Corvo would either sneak his way out, barely disturbing a leaf, or massacre his way out, painting the cells red with those unfortunate to be stuck with you. After acquiring a bomb and blasting the main entrance open, he retreats into the sewers, and seeing the various horrors within the S-bend, gathering specifically crafted weapons left just for him before reaching the other side, and meeting Samuel the boatman.
I'm Samuel, and I work for some good people who want very much to meet you. Well, they said you'd come out here. I could still hardly believe it. I'll take you to meet them. Just down the river from here.
Now clear of Coldridge Prison, Samuel takes Corvo to the abandoned Hound Pits pub, and is introduced to the Loyalists, a motley crew of people who wish to bring down the Lord Regent's tyranny, but each bring their own baggage that could complicate things. Leading the group is Admiral Havelock, an Empire nationalist who is willing to do anything to bring down the Lord Regent, yet dreams of grander ambitions beyond returning the Empress to the throne, and is very ruthless in his use of force.
For those ends, we'll hide, act in shadow, take them apart, piece by piece.
Trevor Pendleton is a representative of the nobility amongst the rebel group. And not only does he bring plenty of butlers and maids into the group, but he brings financial support and influence in Parliament. Yet he is a drunkard with many bottles littering his room. He's a coward and abusive to his staff.
Where's Wallace? Wallace! You're promoted wherever you are. Head lackey.
And then there's Piero Joplin, a former philosopher within the Academy of Natural Philosophy, is now an eccentric inventor of Corvo's weapons, ammo, potions, and upgrades. Yet he is very socially awkward.
I know it looks... I was inventing a new kind of lock. The tumblers, shaped like snowflakes. The truth is, there is no snowflake lock. I was just, looking through the lock.
Serving as the main base for the rebellion, the hideout serves as a hub where Corvo could explore the abandoned zone for extra resources, find more lore of this grim world, talk to the characters, and hear their interesting conversations. Take their stuff in the communal environment, watch them bathe,
then I had to use the bathroom, and visit people watch!
And prepare for the next quest. And after being summoned by the outsider within the void and given his supernatural abilities to use as he sees fit, Corvo is unleashed upon the dying husk of Dunwall, and dismantles the Lord Regent's regime and his allies piece by piece. Traversing several levels from warehouses and dilapidated cities to the halls of power like the Overseer's Temple, the Boyle Manor and Dunwall Tower, The player is given several ways to fulfill each objective, with both a variety of lethal and non-lethal ways to eliminate the target.
So I'm gonna shave their heads and cut out their tongue.
The lethal attempt is quicker and simpler, yet runs the risk of producing a gauntlet of enemies hell-bent on finding their benefactor's killer, making more bloodshed imminent, whereas the non-lethal approach is slower and requires a little bit more of skullduggery to fulfill it. Yet the rewards are all the better if you do so, and you have less hostiles chasing you afterwards, unless you're a dumbass. First target is High Overseer Thaddeus Campbell, leader of the Overseers, a religious militant order hell-bent on ridding the Empire of the corruption of the outside. Ironic, since he's highly corrupt and lives a bosh lifestyle completely against the ways of the Overseers. He also has the Black Journal, containing contacts within the regime and people he can intimidate and bribe. Ridding him would open up more targets and lose the Overseers as a viable ally to the Lord Regent. Also, Martin, a fellow loyalist, must be freed and can give the rebellion a master strategist, as well as someone to control the Overseers. Either kill him with blade, poison he spiked wine with, or you can brand him a heretic with the Heretics brand, casting him out as a nobody. All up to you. Regardless of what you do, the Overseers lose their leader and become less relevant to the regime. Next target is the Pendleton brothers, Morgan and Custis, Trevor's own flesh and blood he despises and pictures as cruel and without pity.
Morgan and Custis. They're horrible men. It's true, as you may have heard, cruel beyond words.
At the tender age of 5, they tied me to the crib and set inside it assorted vipers they had collected over several weeks. My howls and my breathing were muffled by a blanket, and so it was hours before the nurse found me, barely alive.
As well as they own a few slave mines to make them even more evil.
My cousin's a foreman at their mine. He says the slaves have dug half a mile down, so deep they're dying by the dozen from collapse or fumes. But the silver's almost gone.
Also being members of parliament, they are loyal to the regime and the regent, and hold influential votes. If eliminated, the loyalists can gain a considerable hold in parliament. And being holed up in the Golden Cat brothel with Emily, no less, the loyalists now have a chance to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. No pun intended. Either killing them one at a time in their different suites,
What is that noise? Oh no. No.
or doing a few favours for Slackjaw, the local crime lord, by receiving info to a safe worth cracking from an artist only known as Bunting.
Retribution!
And Slackjaw takes care of the Pendleton brothers himself.
You brought me the numbers. I've been after this combination for months. If you ever need steady work, you come see me. Slackjaw knows a good man when he sees one. It's only natural that you be curious about what I intend to do with the Pendletons. See, them Pendletons got these rock mines. Have hundreds of souls working down there half a mile deep below ground. So I'm gonna shave their heads and cut out their tongues and put them in one of their own stinking mines. Then they're gonna see life from a different angle.
Yeah, some of these non-lethal ways do make you raise an eyebrow and question that choice. Oh yeah, you rescue Emily. Woo! Having returned Emily to the safety of the Hound's Pits pub, and noticing a darker tone with Trevor, that could be reversed if you do the non-lethal run, Corvo is sent out once again to kidnap famed royal physician and painter of aristocrats, tinkerer of the many techno nightmares you'll avoid, or kill, and philosopher, Anton Sokolov. Held up in his heavily guarded and extensive safe house near Coldwind's Bridge, Sokolov is equally brilliant with his intelligence and mad, uncaring in his experiments and deeply fascinated in the dark arts.
I now turn my hopes and energies to Formula 25, which, in conjunction with a high heat therapy, which came to me most vividly in a dream last night, has great potential, according to the latest celestial alignment. As for test subject 312, after the characteristic sloughing of the skin, she should be dead by mid-morning tomorrow.
Under Havelog's orders, Corvo crosses a heavily guarded Coldwind's Bridge during a curfew, and either shedding so much blood, or being a shadow among shadows, kidnaps the physician, the only target you cannot kill, and imprisons him in the kennels. Upon awakening, and either bribing him or coercing him with rats, always the rats in my runs,
I elect not to tell you. You will have to force the words from me, and I warn you, my willpower is quite legendary.
Not rats. Stop! Stop!
I will tell you what you need to know.
Sokolovs gives up information on the Lord Regent's secret mistress, one of the Boyle sisters and financier to the Lord Regent's regime, who conveniently is running a masquerade party this very evening. Already donning the mask, Corvo blends into the party, and after snooping around gathering evidence on her identity, there are 3 sisters who 3 different coloured yet similar outfits, eating all the food, winning the duel, and taking the aristocrat's stuff, either through a process of elimination, or killing the right one, different per gameplay session, or giving her to an overzealous lover. The last of the Lord Regent's allies are gone, and is now open for the taking. Backed into a corner, the Lord Regent retreats to Dunwall Tower, to where it all began. Now a closed-off fort bristling with defences and guards, the time to strike is now. Climbing up the tower, getting revenge on your torturer, stealing the treasures at the tower, and finally bringing down the Lord Regent for good. If done in a high chaos manner, he will lock himself up in a panic room, adding an extra area to explore. If done stealthily, he'll die in his bedroom with less security to fight through.
Where are the reinforcements? The Regent is under attack.
But if you want to deal with him non-lethally, find an audio tape and expose his biggest crime to the people. Regardless, the regime falls and the Loyalist conspiracy is a success. But cracks begin to form, and depending on the amount of chaos, the hints vary.
How many?
If at high chaos, it's more visible. The atmosphere is bleaker, no one seems happy despite the celebrations, and Trevor, Martin and Havelock are clearly jockeying for overall power.
That's it. The Lord Regent's done. Farewell to Hiram Burroughs, you scheming piece of shit. Now we can bend the law to pardon our past crimes, Corvo. We'll find out the assassin the Lord Regent sent to butcher the Empress. Then you can have your revenge. We'll have to move fast to clean up his mess. The armed forces will do their job. Martin has control of the overseers, and you, Trevor, do whatever it is you do with Park.
That's Lord Trevor Pendleton to you. Without me, you'll never command the nobility. They'll tear you apart like a fish.
Sorry, Corvo. We're nervous. Your work is done, and ours begins.
But if the chaos is low, it's barely noticeable and people are more cheerful, hopeful for the future.
Damn me, he's done it. Word is spreading all over the city. The tyranny is over. By this time tomorrow, Emily will be on the throne. After that, we'll clear your name and put everything we've got into rebuilding the city.
I wish there were more of a city to rule. Most of Dunwall is rats and corpses.
The Admiral was right, I'm afraid. Corvo, you did your job while the rest of us sat on our asses. Our work starts tomorrow.
Tonight, rest easy. Tomorrow, we crown an Empress. To Corvo, the man who served to change the course of history.
To Emily Colvin, and the new dawn rising for Dunwall and the Empire.
Regardless though, Corvo is half poisoned, and is sent to the fabled and hellish Flooded District, and captured by everyone's other favourite assassin, Dowd, and his Whaler gang.
I know a great deal, bodyguard. I recognize those marks on your hand. A gift from your friend. The one who talks to you in the dark. Talks to you when you visit his shrines. I visited those shrines too. And I know what it felt like to shove a blade into your Empress. But I don't know you. Who you are, and who you fight for. You're a mystery. And I can't allow that.
Deprived of your weapons and left with only the things left on you, you traverse the apocalyptic landscape of the Flooded District, devastated cityscape that was once the financial district, now used as a quarantine zone full of piles of the dead, weepers wandering and moaning in the streets, and magic-using assassins stalking you from up high. Despite the visual nightmare, Corvo must persevere. Gain your weapons back, find an old foe. Hi Campbell! Be sickened by the lack of remorse for the infected and confront the killer of your Empress. After he delivers a surprising audio log for a cold-blooded killer.
So you've lost it all. Ruined at last. Lord Regent, Royal Spy Master, Hiram Burroughs. You small, worried man. You'll never know how many times I've thought about trying to get close to you again. Just to put a piece of sharp metal in your eye. But now there's no need. You've been taken down by the same apparatus that gave you life to begin with. laws and courtrooms and the mighty swell of public outrage. Good riddance to you, sir. So many schemes you had, and so many contracts. How many people did I kill for you? None like the last. None like her. I'd give back all the coin if I could. No one should have to kill an empress.
Then you fight him in a high-octane and mana-using fight. Albeit very floaty and confusing. After several successive strikes, he surrenders and his life is yours to decide. Kill him and personally avenge the Empress, or be a better man and let Dowd live with his sins. With the deed done one way or the other and leaving the flooded district, Corvo travels the sewers, a nest of disease or a refuge for the unfortunate. May even confront Granny Rags once more, which took me off guard. And you return to the Hound's Pit pub. And things haven't gone well at all. Guards have overrun our old base and several have been killed. Many more if you do the High Chaos run. But info regarding Emily's location is somewhere in our former base. So, sneaking past or stabbing everyone, or after doing a little side quest for Sokolov and Piero with an arc tower that can incapacitate or barbecue the city watch, the ruin is reclaimed and information on Emily's location is found. The King Sparrow Lighthouse, your final showdown. After signaling Samuel for one last favour, he sends you to the lighthouse, and upon approaching the island, and depending on the chaos level, the atmosphere is either foreboding, as Samuel reprimands you for your actions.
And you. I'm a little disappointed, Corvo. It's like you've gone out of your way to be brutal. It's been interesting traveling with you, but this is the last time you'll see me, sir. Goodbye.
Or more optimistic, and Samuel wishes the best for Corvo and Emily.
All I can say is that it's been a pleasure serving with you. Maybe after all this is settled, we'll see each other again. Good luck, Corvo. If anyone deserves it, you do. Give my best to Emily. After she's on the throne, she won't have time for an old man like me. I knew you were sharp, Corvo. But somehow you managed to get through all this mess without losing sight of what really matters. For that, I respect you.
And as you traverse the lighthouse on your last mission, depending on your previous actions, it is either a war zone as the three former conspirators are fighting for the right as Lord Regent. All are left on a silver platter to slaughter. And with Emily saved, and after standing off with Havelock, she follows in Corvo's more grimmer path and executes the conspiracy, though the Empire is weakened significantly years after the plague. Yet, if you follow a low chaos path, the lighthouse is less fortified and the weather is glorious. The conspirators are driven to guilt over what they have done. Even Havelock seems driven to guilt and mutters to himself.
I know Corvo's coming for me just like he came for the others. Crossing the island below like it was nothing. It's only a question of how and when. I'm lacking a counter-move. It's all falling apart.
Hasn't stopped him from killing his competition, but with Emily rescued and inspired by your example, she would rebuild the Empire under your wise and nurturing rule, and wipe the plague from the face of Dunwall, and a new Golden Age would follow in its wake. But it's all up to you. The end. Yeah, as you can tell, depending on the path you have taken, it can completely alter how certain NPCs and even the game's outcome can change. Either you are a bloodthirsty murderer driven by revenge, or you seek to redeem yourself by doing the less violent option. It increases replayability, and with the many stories and NPCs you can discover, as well as different approaches to gameplay, there is a reason I have come back to this game for so many years since release. Yeah, this game is fan-bloody-tastic. But, when you thought it was over, there's the DLCs. Woo! Released between April 16th and August 13th, 2013, The Knife of Dunwall and the Brigmore Witches. These DLCs take a glimpse at another main character of relevance and his quest during the Rat Plague that leads to another major conspiracy of considerable import. That character being everyone's other favourite assassin, Dowd, voiced by fellow American badass and Reservoir Dog, Michael Madsen, who does a great job at voice acting a grim, cold yet morally complicated assassin.
Dunwall is changing fast. 6 months ago, Draper's Ward was where Dunwall's rich and well-born strolled and shopped and tried to be seen. The plague burned through it in days. Today it's a battleground where 2 street gangs fight over the spoils. The Hatters and Lizzie's gang, the Dead Eels. Lizzie Stride was the boss until Edgar Wakefield betrayed her and took her place. And her riverboat. It's the kind of thing that happens every day in Dunwall. I don't judge him. I've done worse myself. But I need that boat. Edgar Wakefield and I have business.
Unlike all these DLCs from before, there is plenty of new features that can be used to your advantage. For a start, and even before you start your game, you now have Master Assassin difficulty, the hardest difficulty for the DLCs, and is something of a new game plus, for it can only be accessed after finishing the stories on any other difficulty. But once you have chosen your difficulty and are ready to go, you'll notice there are a few new weapons, abilities, features, enemies and maps to see, use and stab to death. Alongside the return of your trusty and utilitarian sword, pistol, grenades and your trusty crossbow, redesigned as a cool looking wrist mounted crossbow. Ooh, fancy. You have a few extra new weapons at your disposal. You've got your stun mine that can be placed anywhere and can knock out pursuers. Choke dust grenades that act like flashbangs can be used to disorientate your foes and give you a chance to escape or an opportunity to finish them off. And finally, arc mines, a portable electrical weapon that can render those affected into ash. A mini arc tower with all of its power packaged into a little landmine. And alongside the new weapons of steel and gunpowder, Dowd's arcane arsenal is improved and has gained several new abilities. The psychokinetic pool does what it says on the tin really. Any object within its pulsating aiming reticule is pulled into the player's grasp, be it loot, potions, and even people as they flail around in terror as their doom inches closer. You can summon assassins and they can take out whatever target is aimed at upon summoning, without ever coating your sword in your enemy's blood. Dowd also has his own version of Blink and Void Gaze, the differences being that Void Gaze mixes the abilities of Dark Vision and the Heart, which you may have noticed isn't in the DLCs, and allows you to find key objects, creatures, and finding runes and bone charms through the walls. Speaking of bone charms, new ones have appeared only in this DLC, known as Corrupted Bone Charms. These charms provide not only buffs to certain abilities, but they can also provide a severe debuff. Blink only has one difference with Dowd, due to the fact that this time is frozen as you make your move. And when it comes to the story, whilst it's fine and nothing truly groundbreaking nor very long to complete, it is the starting point for one of the most important plots and characters for the series. Gameplay is obviously identical to the original game of exploration, looting, and the choices of killing or sneaking around the landscape. And as before from the original story, you can either go for a high or low chaos gameplay, and each style has an effect to corresponding levels. And since the two stories are linked, they can affect the following DLC of the Brigmore Witches. So, and surprise second storytelling, spoilers here. The first story, The Knife of Dunwall, takes place parallel to Corvo's quest for revenge. 6 months after the Empress's murder, the Outsider informs Dowd that his story will end soon. But how it will end depends on finding Delilah. He and his right-hand assassin, Billy Lurk, soon find a whaling ship called the Delilah in the Rothwild Slaughterhouse, a whale oil processing plant ran by a ruthless businessman, Bundrew Rothwild, and his loyal butchers. And before you start each quest, you buy equipment and upgrades you think is needed, but you can also buy favours, a new feature in the game. These favours provide extra treasures to find within the map, extra side missions that can affect the chaos level, as well as easier ways to egress each level and reduce the chances of being spotted. After this, Dowd can then begin his assignment, seeking into, or slaughtering, into the factory and seeing the hapless whales and their panicked eyes. Misuse of tools on employees and finding the information needed by interrogating Rothwild, then killing him, or shipping him off, or helping Abigail Amis by destroying the factory. They find out that the ship was sold to Rothwild by barrister Arnold Timsh, after claiming the name haunted him. With new information, Dowd heads to the legal district and contacts Arnold's niece, Thalia Timmish, in exchange for disposing of her uncle and retrieving her grandmother's will from his estate. Thalia will spill the beans on Delilah. A lawyer by trade and allied to the Lord Regent, Arnold uses his manipulation of the law to gain properties and their assets, from people killed by the plague, or not, and sells them to colleagues and friends. And to avoid arrest, he has legal immunity which he always carries on him, but either through simply slicing his throat or manipulating his legal immunity and getting him imprisoned.
Not comply immediately. A month ago? Are you showing me this to try to convince me that you're above the law?
What? Let me see that.
Hey, shut up.
This isn't possible.
Barrister, I am afraid I am going to have to take you into custody. And if I or any of my men contract the plague because of this visit, I'll see that your hit rolls.
No. This isn't the right document. This...
The deed is done, and hand over the will to Thalia. And in exchange, she tells more about this mysterious Delilah. Originally a baker's apprentice in Dunwall Tower, Arnold met Delilah and she convinced him to make her a beneficiary of Arnold's mother's will before simply disappearing. Later one night during a seance at the Boyle estate, Arnold and Thalia accidentally summoned Delilah, who was painting Dowd's name on canvas, hence her and Dowd's investigations into each other. After that is done, returning to the flooded district, the Whalers' base is attacked by the Overseers under the command of Overseer Hugh, leading Dowd to rescue those he can find and pushing back the Overseers, either through violence or taking them prisoner. But with the base liberated and the Overseers' attack defeated, Delilah finally emerges and taunts Dowd and his assassins will be destroyed by her Covenant witches.
The Brigmore witches will be your end. You should have forgotten my name the day you heard it.
Then Billy betrays you, and depending on your chaos level, she does so as she considers you weak, and in the high chaos ending, she fights you until death, but in the low chaos ending, which I achieved, she double crosses Delilah and understanding her transgression, gives you the choice to execute her or let her go. I let her go because I'm a nice guy, but now the stage is set for Dowd to face Delilah and a coven of the Brigmore witches. In the following DLC, starting after the Knife of Dunwall story and passing over whatever equipment, abilities and consequences you've had from the first DLC, the story begins with Corvo and Dowd dueling one another once again within a flashy fight. Plenty filled with spellcasting, sword slashing and the firing of pistols. Just as Dowd deals a killing blow, he wakes up from a dream back at his base, greatly fortified since the Overseer attack. A note from Billy may also be found if she was spared. But for Dowd, his mission is clearer than ever before. Luckily for him, he knows where Delilah and her coven are located. The dilapidated Brigmore Manor outside the quarantined Dunwall. But since Corvo's escape, security is at an all-time high. So, Dowd seeks the aid of Lizzie Stride, leader of the Dead Eels gang, and can access areas around the Wrenhaven River in her boat, the Undine. Unfortunately, she is imprisoned at Coldridge Prison, and has become heavily fortified since Corvo's escape. So, either using the disguise of an Overseer, or simply sneaking in, he moves in and can see guards being executed for helping Corvo escape. And the interrogation room has become something of a botanical garden, unless you listen to the audio tape.
You hear a kind of ringing in your ears? What's happening to her face? Is she going to... Oh no! Shoot her! Shoot her! Shoot!
Upon finding Lizzie, she reveals that she has been betrayed by her second-in-command, Edgar Wakefield, and her boat was captured alongside her gang. Weakened by torture, confinement, and kneeling whilst heavily chained up, she collapses and Dowd, being a gentleman, carries her out to safety within the flooded district. With his next objectives in mind, Dowd moves towards the Draper Ward. Once a high-end area where the nobles and well-to-be shopped for the latest imperial fashions, it is now gutted out from the plague and a vicious gang war between the Dead Eels and the Hatters. Wonder where the gang got that name from. And whilst in the district, he happens upon more information about Delilah's intentions. Visiting Jerome, a black market seller and former dressmaker to the Colburn royal family, he once received a lock of Emily's hair as a gift for being a good friend to the family. But recently, Delilah appeared, bewitched him, which led him to draw occultic symbols all over the walls you can see, and she stole a lock of hair. Driven to paranoia over Lizzie's possible retribution, Edgar has sealed himself up upon the Undine and surrounded himself with plenty of guards within the riverfront, but that doesn't doubt from disposing him, one way or the other, and reasserting Lizzie's control over the gang. Not before giving out a few punishments to those who followed Edgar, by the way. However, because of Edgar's incompetence, the Hatters have managed to acquire the Undine's engine coil, rendering the ship immobile, and using it at the textile mill. Traversing to the base of the Hatters, Dowd comes face to face with the leader, Mortimer Hatt, known as the Geezer, kept artificially alive via machines, and Nurse Trimble, who has usurped control of the gang thanks to the Geezer's state. Taken about because the sewer mechanisms have failed and drained the canal needed to power the mill, Trimble, or the Geezer, if you kill, incapacitate or distract the nurse, asks you to fix it in return for giving back the coil. You may even encounter the witches down here and have the shit scared out of you. After cleaning the sewers, Dowd can have two approaches to get a door code to get to the engine coil, either by asking Trimble, much to the Geezer's disapproval, or if you help the Geezer, he only asks that you finally let him die by disconnecting his life support and letting the Hatters die. But since the defense mechanism is filled with poison gas that could kill the entire building, Dowd must then create and then consume an antitoxin to make himself immune. With those steps done and the coil returned, Dowd sails to Brigmore Estate for a final showdown with Delilah. A decrepit rundown manor shrouded in mist, a foreboding atmosphere seeping in death. The dark arts overrun via nature that seems to have affected the witches also. Many eyes watch for Dowd. Besides the many witches, necromantic gravehounds rising out of the ground, and seemingly impervious to damage, raise again. Unless you destroy their skulls. Luckily, they sparkle, so you know. Not only those watch the estate, but even the statues that Delilah provide overwatch over the estate. And the Warlord is being honest here. When it first spoke and saw me, it scared the living shit out of me.
I see.
But it doesn't scare Dowd. And after reading several notes left around the estate and overhearing several conversations from her fellow sisters, Delilah has imperial aspirations. Using a painting of Emily Coldwin, she seeks to possess her and rule the Empire in her place. After one last conversation with the outsider, Dowd enters the Void, and seeing Delilah begin her ritual, Dowd can stop it in 3 different ways. Threateningly kill her after battling through her mirrored copies, swap the painting of Emily with one of the Void and trapping her permanently within the Void, or Dowd knocks her out and does the whole thing himself. I killed her twice. First one intentionally, the second time I tried to do the non-lethal approach. I goofed up, so I killed her again to be sure. And for the last time, depending on how much chaos Dowd has brought to his missions, you can get a good ending or bad ending, depicted in the aftermath of Corvo's fight against Dowd in the Flooded District level. And as in that level, if the high chaos run is achieved, Dowd is killed, whilst in the low chaos run, he is spared. Thus, end in Dowd's story, and thusly Dishonored 1. And with that, Dishonored is conquered and done. And this game is brilliant. In fact, a couple of days after finishing capturing footage from my broadcast, I went back and played it again. And again, I did a low chaos run, which I have said before is a more satisfying and rewarding way to play the game. That's how great it is, and there is a reason I have played a combined 116 hours of this game. The graphics are inspired, artistically beautiful, and full of little details that will make you double take everything, even if some of the textures take a few seconds to load in properly. The music and sound effects are also inspired and makes the atmosphere of the game foreboding, yet beautiful and action-packed when needed. And the gameplay is simply amazing. Not only are the controls exquisite and feels friendly to all players, but despite being also difficult to master regardless of either using the keyboard or controller. But the ebb and flow, the feel, the choices on how you achieve your objectives, and how in control you are despite the chaos of battle is almost like magic. Barring a few hiccups. Obviously I would highly recommend this game, but the fact that this game was given so many rewards since release and is still considered one of the greatest games ever made speaks wonders. And this game would become a franchise with many lore-expanding comics, books being released soon after. And the game would be followed with a sequel, Dishonored 2 in 2016. Get this game! The Warlord commands you, and you can do that on Steam or GOG if you play on PC with the Definitive Edition that adds every DLC, and is relatively cheap at £16 when not on sale. Worth it if you ask me. And with that, thus ends another broadcast by the Warlord. Stay tuned for more broadcasts in the future for next time. I'm going to be playing a Sega game next. One where just because it's nostalgic from your childhood doesn't mean it's great when revisited. So until next time, this is the Warlord signing out.